Welcome back to the Baseline Scoop, which, as always, is brought to you by Lots of Rain Watches. Shop Lots of Rain Watches for affordable luxury watches. Their watches and accessories offer timeless style and design without the high price and shoddy materials of other watch providers. Every watch they sell is backed by their 24-month warranty to protect your investment for years to come. Pre-orders for the new Manifest are now open, and don't forget to use promo code BLS10 for 10% off your order. All right, welcome to another episode of the Baseline Scoop. I'm your host, Zach Ciavolella, here with my guy, Justin Crosby. Justin, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. You know, playoffs are approaching. Excitement in the city. Let's go.
Absolutely. You know, we're coming down to the final stretch. Just a couple home games left, just a couple road games left. And then it's playoff time, baby. So it's a real exciting time in Philadelphia. I had a division rivalry game last night against the Toronto Raptors. Always interesting when the Sixers meet the Raptors. A little bit, terrifying just with the memories of what happened in the playoffs last year and what happened to Joel Embiid specifically. But Sixers took care of business. They really handled it, and they came out real energetic and really just clicking on all cylinders last night and lighting it up from the start. First half especially was just incredible. Set a franchise record for shooting percentage. You know, Justin, you were down there with the media. What did you observe before the game and early on in that game?
Yeah, before the game, kind of felt like it could be one of those games where the Sixers, overlook their opponent because they have two big matchups with the Bucks and Celtics coming up. Felt like that. Kind of got that vibe. Then as well, I watched Siakam Pascal Siakam. Took about 60 pregame jump shots, step backs, 3-pointers, and it looks like every one of them went in. So I was just like, oh man, here we go. He's like looking good, feel good. Probably gonna hit the Sixers with a 40 piece. And actually went the opposite way as far as his performance is concerned. But started out early, looked like the Sixers, especially when PJ Tucker hit those first 2 threes. I'm like, yeah, they're going to win. PJ's hitting like that starting off, they're leaving him wide open and he hits them. It's like you're making them pay. So that was good to see. Kind of slowed down a little bit. You know how the Raptors do. They're pesky. They muck it up. And then they went on this crazy run in the second quarter. James Harden on the bench. James Harden plus athletes. That definitely worked and helped build the lead. Paul Reed was amazing all game, but specifically in that second quarter, Jalen McDaniels, Daniel House Jr. It was just a good all around showing from the bench during that time to help build the lead. Shooting 79% from the field. Then in the second half, Sixers came back down to earth. It was a lot of groaning because they went on a 12-0 run and they probably missed their first 10 shots. And probably half of those shots were wide open. So it was just like make or miss type situation. They weren't necessarily bad shots, but but the Sixers were able to kind of stabilize and get it together and pull out a victory. One thing I noticed also, they changed their defense on Joel where they put a wing on him and doubled him right away. But Joel last night, he did not force anything at all, and that was, he just let the game come to him in the second half. He drove where he felt like he had an opportunity or, made a move when he felt like he had an opportunity. Other than that, he passed the ball. And that's all you can ask. Like maybe in the fourth quarter or in a tougher game or a different game, he may be more liable to do more. But I think opponent plus, the situation, I think he did the right thing because the one thing I'll say about the Raptors, they have a knack for just doing extra stuff. And okay. I felt like Embiid felt like, oh, if I go here and try to go against 3 guys, somebody going to elbow me in my face or step on my foot or already. So he just, chilled out and let kind of like Harden and the rest of the crew do their thing. Harden looked good last night, had a bounce back game. He had a good groove. And it's like once the step back is going, it's just hard to stop him because he still does have some pop to get by guys. So it's like once he gets that step back going, it's like really nothing you could do. So it wound up being a good all around win for the Sixers. A nice, much needed dub. Keeps Embiid steady in the MVP race as Jokic missed another game, and we'll talk about that later in the MVP stuff. But
yeah,
that's kind of what I saw when I was down there. And then I have a big thing.
Before you get to that, just to touch on to Embiid and kind of letting the game come to him and whatever. I think that there was like a thought of preservation in his head. You meant, and it's not. I want to be clear. This is not like fear of Toronto. This is like, well, let me not get myself in a situation I don't have to get myself in, since he has everything to lose and Toronto doesn't really have that much to lose given where they are in the standings, So we already have seen that this Toronto team is one that is physical, physical to the point of being careless at times as well. So I do agree. I think that Embiid really kind of had a conscious decision to allow the game to come to him, take the shots that came to him, try and draw, light contact when he could, get to the line. Just a kind of a vanilla Embiid game. The issue, obviously was on the turnover front. That kind of reared its head back, and that can happen against a Toronto team like these Raptors have been for the past few years. Just kind of taking advantage of Embiid's weaknesses, and part of it too that kind of just really gets me. What really gets me frustrated is there is an utter lack of communication on this team offensively. I can't tell you how many times I see it, and not just through this game, but throughout the season. Embiid is, he's up about the elbow, right in that general vicinity, and he's got a man on him. He's the other. He's about to get doubled, right? And the double team's coming from behind, coming from the other direction. And nobody talks to him. Nobody lets him know that it's coming. And then a guy like Fred VanVleet, for instance, just slips right on in, strips the ball from him, and then that's it. Like, the lack of communication hurts Joel, hurts the Sixers so much. And it's such an easy thing to fix, too. I think that's what really bothers me about it. But all in all, like, that's looking for faults in this game. It was a very good game by the team overall. But, again, the turnovers, 11 between Harden and Embiid alone. That's something that it's not going to happen against every team because, again, this Toronto team they just don't have the talent, but they're kind of built to beat the Sixers. You got to take care of the ball better than that. And a lot of that, at least in Joel's case, it's just having communication as a team, as a unit. So definitely something to be mindful of moving into the postseason when you play other teams like, say, Boston, who are also kind of built in a way that can give the Sixers a lot of problems. So you just don't want to let these kind of old habits show up in a potential series against Boston, which it looks like maybe the Eastern Conference semifinal, should both teams advance past the first round. But what was the other thing that you saw that really stood out to you, Justin?
So it really stood out to me, and if you just look at scoring totals, you see Fred VanVleet had 19 points. You think, oh wow, Fred VanVleet had a good game. When in actuality, he did not have a good game. Last night, one of the things I decided to do when I was there was intently watch, Tyrese Maxey on defense as he guards Fred VanVleet, because that's been a matchup, from last year's playoff. Like, Fred can't really stay in front of Maxey, and Maxey's just been a terror against the Raptors as far as scoring wise. But I wanted to see how he did, defensively, because they're going to attack Tyrese in the playoffs, and just want to see how he does. So, he had a couple moments early in the year. I remember most recently against Dame, even a little bit Kyrie the other night. But Maxey really played well on defense. Although Fred VanVleet totaled 19 points, he was 5 for 17 from the floor. He was 3 for 10 from three. 2 threes he got of those 3 were off offensive rebounds where people were trying to like get the offensive rebound. Maybe guys already leaked or whatever, and he winds up being at top of the key. And the other one was a miscommunication where the entire game Embiid had been showing on Fred VanVleet pick and roll, but the one time PJ was in the pick and roll action, he didn't show, and VanVleet got a wide open three. Outside of that, Tyrese Maxey chased him through all the screens. He didn't die on any of the screens. When he was running behind him through those screens, he would literally, when VanVleet would get the ball, he would be right there with his hands up, not in the cookie jar so he can get a foul, but high enough in the air so that he couldn't just, throw it up there. Like, it was just a great all-around two-way effort from Maxey.
That's what you have to do against VanVleet because he's a major cookie jar guy, just like Joel Embiid is. VanVleet knows how to draw that contact. So, in order to avoid that was absolutely huge by Maxey. And, along with the poor shooting from VanVleet, 5 personal fouls, 6 turnovers, just not a great night for him.
He was frustrated. He was definitely frustrated. Because there were a couple times watching, like, during the timeout, he would, like one time he punched the stanchion because he was just so mad about how, offensively he wasn't shooting. And it really was because Tyrese made him comfortable, and D'Anthony Melton too made him comfortable. They picked him up 94 feet, like stuff like that, which was really good. And afterwards, Melton in the press conference afterwards, he gave credit to Tyrese, just being better defensively more recently, and knowing that, if he gives that type of effort, he can be a two-way guy in this league. And, he may not want to do it all the time, but the team needs it. So, he can definitely be a two-way guy. So, even his teammates are seeing his improvement and what he's trying to do so he can be on the court because they need him on the court. So yeah, that was definitely something big. And I just want to give props to Maxey because, he was kind of I think like this really started in the Knicks game, I don't know, it might have been in February. He was playing really well defensively, getting in still passing lanes, stuff like that. So I was like, yo, he's starting to get better and realize if he continues to develop on that side of the ball, that like the ceiling is, there's no real ceiling for, and people say this, but there's really no real ceiling how good he can be. So kudos to Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to praise him for it. And, that's one thing. VanVleet's the kind of guy, and I like VanVleet, honestly. Like, for instance, I think he'd be a great fit theoretically on this Philadelphia team. This is not a knock on him per se, just how good of a job Maxey did. But you put a guard like Melton, like especially Maxey, someone who, either of them, because Melton's got the length and Maxey's got the spring in his step, the athleticism over VanVleet. And you make those guys cover him full court all the way up each and every time. Like, that's going to exhaust a guy like VanVleet. Like, that was huge. And let's not forget either, like, you got to credit Doc Rivers for that too. Like there's a lot of crap thrown at Doc for lack of adjustments, roster decisions. I mean, the whole B-Ball Paul situation in its entirety, basically. But it was a solid game by Doc, having that thought process to, hey, let's make VanVleet work. Nothing easy for him, so he can't get hot. Like, absolutely huge, and really was a difference maker for the Sixers in this one.
And you bring up Doc too. The one thing I also say, Doc, again, we talk about Doc's adjustment rate and how quickly he is to adjust and can he adjust. Well, I think you saw last night. They tried to go with the regular rotation, and he saw that Niang wasn't giving him anything, so he put Daniel House in, and it happened in both halves where Niang just wasn't giving him. I think Niang might have had 5 fouls in 6 minutes. He was 1 for 5 from 3. Just wasn't he just wasn't doing anything. And Doc saw that, okay, this is not a matchup we can play Niang in right now tonight. Let's give Daniel House Jr. a chance, and it worked out in their favor. So you got to give, like you said, give Doc credit for, some of those adjustments and stuff.
It's a solid lineup that Harden plus athletes, when you have him out there with McDaniels, Daniel House Jr., Paul Reed, and then really whomever else. If you want, D'Anthony Melton, if you say Shake Milton, I think Melton's usually the better addition there. Just thinking about how not only Melton and Harden work together, but also how Tyrese and Milton work together. it's actually a pretty good lineup, and it's made the bench a lot more efficient. We've talked all season about the continued bench struggles, and often part of that has been Doc not putting them in a position to succeed. But now that you're going with this Harden plus bench lineup, or Harden plus athlete lineup, I should say, like, Doc's really putting them in a position to succeed. And you look at all these guys, and all of them were +6 or better last night. Talking about McDaniels, House, Reed, Milton, like, they were put in a position to succeed. They were incredibly efficient. Again, George Niang was the only guy who wasn't efficient, offensively for the Sixers bench last night. And, everyone had great games. Paul Reed, by the way, 5 for 5 from the free throw line. I mean, got to give him credit for that too. Like, this was a completely solid all the way around game for Paul Reed. And he's just continuing to establish himself as the Sixers, who should be the Sixers' unquestioned backup center. There is not a matchup, if Embiid doesn't start a game, like, I'm okay with Reed not starting. I'd like him to basically get starter minutes, but he doesn't have to physically start. If you want to kind of keep the rotations the same way, that's totally fine. But it's just really a huge step in the right direction, and you hope that he can bring not only what he brought to the team last year in the playoffs, but even a step above, because he's been a step above through the regular season so far. So hopefully that carries over to the playoffs also. But it's just a huge credit to so many people, so many members of the team last night. And James Harden's one guy who, like, the Achilles stuff was not yet terrifying until we saw them play Dallas. And then it was like, just sinking feeling in the gut. Like, how bad is this really? Like, is this going to be just like it was last year in the playoffs? Like, what are we looking at, basically? And then for him to come out and start the game the way that he did, he finished with 23 and 11, which is right around his averages. But like, if watching the actual game, not just the box score, this was a really good James Harden game, even with the 6 turnovers, getting sloppy at times. But, really, that aside, it was a very, very good game by James Harden, and he was aggressive when he needed to be aggressive. Yep. And on top of that, he looked healthy, and I was so grateful to see that. He
definitely had a little pop in his step, for sure.
Yes.
And it was good to see.
Yeah, honestly, it was good to see. Did they talk about, in the media room post-game, did they talk about Harden's health at all, or did that not really come
No,
up?
Doc just mentioned that, they just hope that he looks like that every night, but they just have to manage the injury.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, that's kind of it. The Achilles, calf for Embiid, like, those are lingering things. So, we've heard Doc speak on that before, and there's probably better things that you can do than playing guys 38, 40 minutes in regular season games when they're hurt. But, you have to manage it. That is correct at the end of the day. I guess it just depends on your definition of managing it. But
yeah, so I think that when it comes down to the managing, I think the Sixers think they need to win one more game. If I'm not mistaken, I think they need to win one more game or one more Cavs loss, and they will clinch the 3rd seed. So I think once they clinch this 3rd seed, and then really after these next couple games, if they clinch the 3rd seed against the Celtics or the Bucks, I don't think we'll see them beating Harden for the rest of the season.
Well, if you win the game against the Bucks, right, and let's say you clinch it after that happens, so the game tomorrow against Milwaukee, because there could also be like a little bit of next level, like cerebral thinking to it, like as far as the standings go, because I think the Bucks are 2 games ahead of the Celtics, and the Celtics are 2 games ahead of the Sixers. The 2 seed is just seeming unlikely at this point. Is it possible? Yeah, it's still possible, but it doesn't really seem overly likely. It's probably more likely that they are content with the 3rd seed, but they may prefer to try and see if they can help Boston take that top seed back. And that kind of gamesmanship, does a team ever actually do that? Probably not. Or would they ever admit it? Certainly not. But if they take over Milwaukee, sit their guys against Boston on Tuesday, you can really talk about seeing a Eastern Conference that's led by Boston and a potential second round matchup against Milwaukee. The Sixers definitely favor, they're a better matchup against Milwaukee than they are against Boston. But the way they should be thinking about it, honestly, is you're going to have to play both of them to get through anyway. So it shouldn't matter. But
yeah, that's what I was
the
going
way
to
that
say. At this point,
the temptation,
like, can't avoid either. Yeah.
no, not if you're going to actually win it, which is obviously the goal. So,
Right.
it depends on what we see. So really, it'd be more of a concern, if anything, if we do see that happen, a win against Milwaukee, sitting guys against Boston, just because you do have to question the approach and the attitude at that point. But it's still something that's interesting to see. You wonder. People have made connections with what the Nuggets are doing in the West and possibly trying to structure seating. And I don't know that I agree with that in their case either, but it is something that is at least worth paying attention to, just to see. But the one person I don't think they're going to shut down, they might shut down Harden. I don't think they'll shut down Embiid. And the reason why I say that is I do really think that there is a conscious push for this MVP award. Now, maybe he'll miss one more game. Maybe he will sit against, say, Boston. But I think he's going to play Miami. He's going to play Atlanta. I think there's one other game in addition to that,
Brooklyn,
too.
but I don't think he'll play the
Brooklyn.
Yeah, I think it's Milwaukee, Boston, Miami, Atlanta, and Brooklyn.
Yeah. I mean, so like he's gonna listen. Jokic just sat 2 games. That's something that the Sixers and Embiid are obviously aware of. It has impacted the MVP conversation in a way that's benefited Embiid. He's gone back to being the betting favorite, still second on the Kia MVP ladder. Of course, neither of those are definitive results for the MVP race, but you follow the trends at least. So I think he's going to try and get a few more, 3 more 30-point games, something like that, and make just one final strong push. At this point, it looks like Giannis is just pretty much out of it, out of the race altogether. And it's just Jokic and Embiid, and so it's just a matter of who has the best last 5 games. So it's something that I think that they shouldn't necessarily be focused on, because the playoffs are obviously much more important. But listen,
I feel like this is the closest he's been. So I think they're definitely
people can say that they don't care about the MVP. Yes, they do care about the MVP. Like, you can't tell me you don't care about we know you care about the MVP, and I'm not just talking about Joel. Like to the idea that Nikola Jokic doesn't care about the MVP, like, I don't believe that for a second either. Like, I don't think Jokic is, he has too. So like maybe he doesn't care as much as Embiid has, but like, who doesn't want an accolade that brings you closer to being the greatest at the sport in the history of the sport? And not that I think Jokic or Embiid, will ever touch LeBron or Jordan, but like, these are 2 guys who I think when they finish their career are going to be easily top 50 players of all time. And having awards like the MVP, like, that's just one more thing to look back on to, it's your legacy. Like, Jokic, I think he cares about his playoff legacy even a little bit more than his regular season legacy, because he's had success in the regular season, not so much in the playoffs. Not that Embiid is any different in the playoffs. I want to set that out real straight. But like, yeah, guys care about succeeding. Like, it's not wrong for them to care about succeeding or care about winning awards, celebrating their accomplishment. Like, you can want to win the MVP and want to win the finals. Like, that's the thing. So anyway, like, it's going to be a continuing nauseating conversation, just because it's so close, it's so tight, back and forth. And instead of being like so exciting and almost like stressful in a sense, at this point it's just kind of still a headache for me.
It's been one of the most contentious like debates ever. And then, like you said, just like, these guys are saying that they don't care. Like, Giannis definitely, like, Giannis cares, because it would be his 3rd, and that would put him in an echelon of other top players, right, in NBA history. Jokic definitely cares because he would be the only person to ever win 3 straight MVPs. Like the whole notion that none of these guys care, including Joel, he definitely cares because he feel like he's been robbed. So,
Yeah.
last couple years. So I'm just like, everybody's fighting for it. So,
Yeah.
Maybe Jokic is taking his foot off the gas a little bit.
Yeah.
Or maybe the Denver just hasn't been playing well. And, Giannis, they lost by what? They got blown up by Denver and Boston. So
And
it's
Boston,
just
yeah.
like, this is a round robin thing, but, talking about the straw poll that came out from Tim Bontemps and how, basically they, it came down to literally like literally Joel and his quote unquote
Yeah.
straw poll, like by 2 points. That's just what he's
It's
leading
the
by. So
second
like,
place vote. It was the
yep,
second place votes too. Like that's where Joel like made up the advantage, which was absolutely huge. Like so for him to have this opportunity so close, like something he's been pining after for years and years. Like hell yes, he cares. For Nikola Jokic to be the first person to win 3 straight MVPs, since Wilt Chamberlain did it, and he joined Bill Russell is the only 3 guys to ever win 3 MVPs in a row. Like yeah, he cares. Like you can't tell me that the guy does not care. Like maybe he prioritizes winning over that, and I hope he does. And I hope Embiid
right,
prioritizes winning over winning the MVP
right,
as well. But you can't say that you don't care about winning the MVP award. That's just disingenuous. That applies
yeah,
to everybody, especially Giannis as well, who like it's not a fault, like I said, for him to want to win MVP, but I think it's not too much of a stretch to say that Giannis is probably a little ticked off that there's so much talk about Jokic winning a 3rd straight MVP when he could have very, well won his 3rd straight MVP as well, but there was that supposed voter fatigue that contributed to him losing his last great opportunity. So it's the kind of thing where it's probably going to be just better when it's over. Hopefully that's the case. Like the MVP conversation is going to be decided. The award's going to be handed out. There's going to be huge backlash no matter who wins. And then maybe like midway through the offseason, everyone gets the hell over it.
Although I do think there would be, like, in my opinion, I do think that it would be more backlash if Embiid wins. I really do think that it will be more backlash if Embiid wins.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the backlash would primarily come from Philadelphia if Jokic wins. Like that's the thing is like there's been like there are people who recognize where Embiid's better than Jokic, but like the general consensus is that these 3 players are all magnificent. However,
Right.
that being said, like people frankly don't like Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
That is clear. Like and right or wrong, like not that Joel hasn't given people reason not to like him because he hasn't been, exactly nor should he feel that he has to be, but like a darling to these people. Like he's a troll, he likes having fun on the court. People don't like guys who have fun on the court. And I don't know where they get off deciding that that's not a good trait. But they don't like guys who like having fun on the court. So they don't like Joel Embiid. And like that's your prerogative. That's your narrative, whatever. But like it is the kind of thing where like, maybe if we just all kind of lightened up a little bit and realize that, we're talking about a game here, like, maybe then we'll realize it's not a bad idea to Jordan enjoyed the game. Like Jordan was a killer. Don't get me wrong, but Jordan enjoyed the game of basketball. Like it can be work and you can have fun doing it. So that's the thing. I think that's the biggest thing that gets people with Embiid is, the free throws, which is a ridiculous argument. The trolling, the perceived immaturity, which like, I think every single one of these players have shown what you could call immaturity. I mean, Jokic certainly has. Giannis certainly has. It just doesn't get talked about as much as it does with Embiid for whatever reason. So I agree. Like the backlash, if Embiid won, probably will be bigger. But regardless, like it just has to end at some point. Get it out of your system. Come the start of next year, like whomever won the MVP, just move on. It's a whole new year. That just has to be what it is. Otherwise, I mean, what are we even doing if we're just going to be fixated on that for like this? This isn't even like a Steve Nash MVP kind of a thing where you can say like arguably he just didn't deserve it. Like you can make strong cases for all three of these guys. I mean, yeah, you can pick Embiid over the other guys for really good reasons, but I mean, when you look at like the difference between Nash and Kobe, like it's ridiculous. Like, but that's not the case this year. So just allow whoever wins wins it. You know, just stare at the sky, screaming whatever you want, and just get the hell over it. That's it.
Yes, and I'll say this last thing. Like, although I do think that Embiid deserves to win MVP, I really do. But it does not take away from the fact that it shouldn't take away the fact that Jokic is a really good player and Giannis is a really good player, and they all have different skill sets. They all affect the game in different ways. So I shouldn't take away from either of their greatness. But like, I just want to say that you're telling me in the last, let's see, since 2017 or 2018, let's say when Embiid really came on the scene, and how he's just like changed his game since he's really been actively playing in the league. Like, and you're talking about how talented he is. Like, he's going to go down with Jokic as one of the best, like two best centers of all time. You can't tell me that Embiid does not deserve to win an MVP and an all NBA first team. Like, if we go back in history, if we go to the future and then we come back and there's a time capsule and Embiid doesn't win MVP this year, and they're going to say, oh, this guy led the league in scoring 2 years in a row, had this, defensive stuff, all these things, all these accolades that he's going to have as far as like, all NBA second teams and stuff like that. And they're going to say, oh, this guy didn't win MVP, or kids are going to watch his highlights and be like, this guy, like, so to me, it's just like, it's obvious that Embiid should win, and hopefully he's done enough to win enough voters over. But I would not be surprised if he did not win. I would not be surprised. But that's the only thing I have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing, like, if you're going to tell me Joel won, like, I'll see it I'll believe it when I see it, Again, I do also think he's deserving. I think that what Jokic has done this year has been incredible. I'm not as in love with triple doubles as many people suddenly are now that it's not Russell Westbrook who's putting up triple doubles. But that being said, like, what Jokic has done is fantastic. Embiid's done it in a much tougher conference. Embiid has done what I consider to be more difficult things all season long. So, he's just been more dominant. Like, those are some of my reasons for picking Embiid for it overall. But we'll see what the voters eventually pick, who they pick to be the MVP. My focus is on the playoffs, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I think that's where all the players should be as well. Embiid, Jokic, Giannis, it's you can only control what you can control. And as best as you can, you want to be able to control your health heading into the playoffs, thinking specifically of Embiid. So we'll see what happens. We got another great game tomorrow night. Sixers, Bucks, with Giannis and Joel meeting up if everybody plays at least. So definitely an exciting game on paper. Get a chance to see the Sixers in Milwaukee. They've done pretty good as a road team all season long. However, over the past couple weeks, they've not been as great on the road. So we'll see how it works for them. But for now, I've been Zach Ciavolella here, as always, with my guy Justin Crosby, and we just hit you with the Baseline Scoop.